What have I done? My husband brutally attacked my affair after tracking his live location? Have you ever been stuck between a rock and a very hard place? You know, not knowing what to do or how to act in a certain situation? Being in a place where you have to choose between two people, but it's just hard to get into that decision because your heart longs for both of them. I mean, they were doing different jobs in my life. I was actually in love with both of them, but in different categories. My life has been a roller coaster ever since I came to this world. I would have some good years and bad years. I met someone and that person turned out to be my husband after years of dating. He was a very dominant boss, which is what I loved about him. He was very superior and made me submit to every decision he made. He was a real man. Every woman in our neighborhood wished their husband was like mine. He was a role model to some men. Everything was perfect until he started paying more attention to his work, and I started feeling like I wasn't enough, and also I was getting bored. I missed his compliments and the way he looked at me and touched me. Sometimes I'd be left alone in his huge house and he'd be gone for a week on a business trip. I even thought maybe he was cheating on me. I was needy, but you can't blame me. He made me like this with all the love he gave me and how he treated me, and all of a sudden he just got busy and paid little attention to me. I'm sure someone can relate to what I'm talking about. So let me tell you what exactly happened before my life made a very huge turn during a happy moment. My husband, or must I say my ex-husband Zach Thomas, male 31, and I, female 31, met a while back. I've been married for 8 years to my university sweetheart. We started dating in my first year in Washington University, and Zach was in his second year. I remember when he first approached me, I was those quiet and weird girls, so I had no friends or whatsoever. He found me sitting alone in the cafeteria having my lunch. He first came with his friend. They asked to join me on the table that I was sitting on. I didn't answer them. I just thought that maybe these guys were there to bully me, you know? I mean, I had been bullied for years from my junior years to high school, so I was just not ready to face university bullies. So they sat down without my permission, of course, and I didn't care. I had told myself that I was not going to allow anyone to bully me again. I was just ready for anything, but instead the guys were so nice to me. Zach and his friend kept coming to the table where I was sitting. They were really cool guys, and I found myself letting loose with them, and we started talking. Besides the shy, quiet, and weird side, I was very talkative when I am with the right people or in the right crowd. Since then, I became friends with Zach and his friend. I was really relieved to find out that they didn't want to bully me, but to be friends with me. I mean, a lot of people thought I was a weirdo, and they didn't understand me, so I had made peace with the fact that I would never be understood, and I would never have friends besides my books. The more we spent time together, the more I fell for him. Was I rushing things? But I mean, you can never say no to what the heart wants and needs right. One thing about me was that I couldn't confess my feelings, and I was not about to embarrass myself like that to a man like him. Not knowing that the feeling was mutual, actually, can you imagine that? There was this day where he took me to this very classy and nice restaurant. We were actually going for our first actual date, and it was epic. And crazy enough, it was also my birthday. Yes, I had told him when my birthday was because he had asked me, but I never thought he would actually do something so good for me. I mean, a lot of people usually forgot my birthday, except for my mother, of course, but no one had ever done anything for me or even bought me a gift. I fell in love with him each second we would spend with each other. I've already mentioned that he knew about my dreams of becoming a fashion designer, so he advised me to quit studying journalism and start following my dream. He was going to pay for my college fees, since fashion design was not available in our university. I didn't want that because I wanted to pay my own fees, but he insisted. I was a bit skeptical at first, but eventually agreed to his offer. I mean, I had nothing to lose, right? My parents would even ask me every now and then if I had got friends. And when my answer would be no, you would see the disappointment or whatever on their faces. They were worried about me and the fact that I was not able to make friends. But when I became friends with Zach, I rushed home and told them that I had made friends in university. They couldn't believe me. They thought it would be hard for me to make friends, especially in university. Zach and I started dating the following year, and I would say that the relationship was really a bliss. Our relationship was truly amazing. He made me feel alive, like I was the person that I had long wanted to be. Zach was such an amazing partner who supported me in everything and even helped me with my work at times. I loved the fact that he was not arrogant because of his riches. He was just a low-key, successful person. He moved his family to Los Angeles. His father wanted to move in an area with an ocean view. Imagine the privilege. We shared a lot about ourselves and our goals. I considered him my best friend because he was a good listener, you know. He knew how to make time for me, well, until he didn't. We shared a lot in common. He was very business-minded and enthusiastic about what he does. He became my pillar. He would even take me to different places that I didn't even know of, introducing me to different people who were fashion designers. As much as I had the love of becoming a fashion designer one day, I had the skill and talent in designing clothes and bags, but my wish was to first go to fashion designing school, so I would get more knowledge about it and a qualification. After some months of us dating, he asked me to move in with him because the apartment I was staying in was a bit far from him and the college that I was going to attend. I was not sure about his offer. He had done a lot for me already, and I was scared that he would somehow become controlling if I agreed, so I asked for some time to think about it. As much as I wanted to move in with him so much, but my parents didn't like the idea, saying that I should get married first before considering moving in with him. I told him what my parents had said, and the guy didn't even waste much time. 1 month later, he proposed, then we got married 2 months after. He just couldn't wait for me to be his wife officially. I was just so happy as well, and I couldn't wait to spend the rest of my life. I knew that I had made my parents proud by moving in with Zach after our wedding. I really loved the man. Heck, I was just head over hill with him. Our relationship meant a lot to me. I was even ready to give him kids, but all that changed when he also started changing. I was the happiest woman. I got to be with the man of my heart. Guys, you don't know how much I loved my husband. Did I count the chickens before they hatched? I knew he loved me. He showed that to me in every way, and he made me the woman amongst others. At least he made me believe he loved me. Our relationship was a bliss. He wanted nothing about me, and he was somehow insecure, so he made sure to take me to and from college. I really don't know where he got that time, but I appreciated it a lot. I fell much deeper in love with him, Zach was like the source of breath. A day without him, it was really hard to survive. You can say that I was clingy. I always wanted my man next to me, But that changed when he started focusing more on his job and sometimes traveling city to city, or maybe outside the country sometimes. I would miss him so much since I would always stay behind because of school. A year passed, everything was still a bliss, and we were very inseparable. I passed my first year very well, thanks to my man for being the best. My dream was slowly but surely becoming a reality, and I couldn't be happier. My fashion design career had started booming. My husband had introduced me to some of his associates, and that was a great start for me. His associates then marketed my designs, which gained me a lot of clients, including some celebrities. My husband was the main reason I was that person I was. My fashion was outstanding. I even dressed some celebrities. It was bliss. A week after our marriage, we moved to an estate in Las Vegas. He once told me that ever since he was a child, he had always wanted to own a casino. So during his tech tour, he met someone who owned a casino and was very fascinated by his IT skills. You see, the power of making connections, it really helps sometimes. They became friends, and he was invited to be a guest in his casino. He ended up telling him about his love of casinos, and they made a deal. I sat in a shop in the mall, and I hired young designers to work for me. If I wasn't at the shop, I was at home drawing or sleeping. It was sometimes boring because I had no friends. The only friend I had was my husband. That was when everything went in a different direction. He was always busy since his casino plan became a success. I loved his determination and enthusiasm, but I also needed his time, Well, time passed, and he got pretty busy to a point that I would only see him. 2 or 3 times a week, mind you, that it was during winter holidays. He didn't even come back home during the week of Christmas and New Year because it would get pretty hectic. I tried to complain about it because ever since he got the IT deal from a big law firm, he even forgot about my birthday, and it was really unusual and alarming. So when I complained about it, he told me that he was working for our future and our children's future. That was just a lame excuse to justify his absence and behavior. Or was I reading too much on everything? When I saw that my husband was no longer spending a lot of time with me, I started getting bored to the core. It was emotionally draining having to be patient for someone who had changed on you and made you feel unloved anymore. Sometimes I would visit my parents, but it would only be a day thing, not a sleepover. As much as I wanted to share what was happening in my marriage, I had no one to share my marriage problems with. I started going out on solo dates. The stress and tension was too much. Going out really helped me. I once heard a phrase that says, "When a lady is stressed, shopping is the best therapy," which was not true to me because I was not a person who took shopping as therapy. So shopping was not what would make me happy or forget about what was happening in my house. I then started going out, going on solo dates, or visiting the clubs in Vegas. I was trying to pass time, I couldn't stay cooped up in the house for the longest time because I didn't even know when my husband would have time for me again. I missed him so much, Even our intimate moments were no longer the same. Since I was so bored in the house, I decided to just go out at least twice or 3 times a week if I was free. I would go out to a spa maybe and pamper myself. I mean, my husband was moneyed and he was taking good care of me even though I also had my own money and my parents were still sending me money for allowance. I was just secured and happy. So all the money that I was getting, I decided to open a secret account that would save my money on. My husband Zach would come back home tired, so I would sometimes wear lingerie to spice things up and bring some action spark into our lives again. But I would be wasting my time and effort for doing that because he would come back very tired and he would just take a bath, eat, and just doze off. What infuriated me the most was when he would just doze off during a serious conversation and always get tired after one round of our intimate moment. It was really a turnoff for me because I wouldn't reach my climax and he would leave me hanging and fall asleep. It was no longer fun in our marriage and I hated that. I mean, why introduce me to fun stuff and good things, then leave me hanging when I become an addict? I was just a weirdo and a shy girl who lived with her parents and had no friends or whatsoever. But I got involved with Zach. He introduced me to a lot of stuff that includes intimacy. He introduced me to it and I got hooked. I loved being intimate and being freaky with him just like how he had taught me. But he wasn't there anymore to satisfy my needs and desires. I didn't want to go outside my marriage and break my wedding vows, but I was driven by desires and greed, I think. Time passed, I was starting to enjoy my solo dates, going to check on my work, then visit clubs. It was somehow therapeutic for me and it made me kind of forget about my miserable marriage. I mean, we didn't even have children for Christ's sake, so what my husband was doing made me think that even if we were to have children, that means those children would also suffer to get his attention. I was somehow glad that we didn't have any children or the talk of having any children because they were going to suffer like I was. I started getting compliments from other men, as much as I wished I was getting those compliments from my husband, but I was starting to enjoy it. There is that great feeling and increased self-esteem and confidence whenever you get a compliment from someone, either your partner or a stranger. I had never even thought of cheating on my husband. I loved him too much to do him like that. But I had started wearing beautiful short dresses for him to bring back the spark, but he just wouldn't pay any attention to me. He would only give me a slight compliment. That would be it. I wanted him to touch me like he used to. Imagine being with someone you only see twice on weekdays. He comes home when you're asleep and lives early in the morning. When he is at home, he is in his office and he doesn't want to be bothered unless you bring him something to eat or snack on. I didn't know what to do anymore because he was not even paying any attention to my concerns. As much as I needed his time and attention, I was really concerned about his health. He was too attached to his work to a point that he would just lock himself in his study or small office room the whole day. I was really worried about him and the connection that we had was slowly fading. I had been patient for way too long. I mean, even the heart that loves also gets tired, right? And love alone was not enough if there was no connection and affection. We were more life room or housemates because we were staying in the same house, sleeping on the same bed, but the connection was no longer there. I had known there and then that I had really lost my husband, not to any lady or whatever, but I lost him to his work. Time passed, he started going on his business trips for months, leaving me in the house. What did he think I was getting attention from? So I went out more often. Well, more like going to clubs more often. The way I was so stressed, I almost got myself drinking anxiety pills because of the way my husband was acting. It was stressing me out. So one night I had decided to go to the club just to unwind. When I arrived, it was packed, and to find out that there was an event happening. It was a great distraction for me and my mind. I needed it, and I felt alive again. I forgot all about my marriage problems and my sudden changed husband. I drank carelessly to a point that I didn't even know my name. So I hooked up with some guy that I had met at the club, and we actually made out in one of the restrooms, not thinking and knowing that the guy was actually taking a video of us making out. Such a pervert. One thing I loved about myself was that I would always remember everything that I had done when I was intoxicated. But that night, even God was my witness. I was way out of it, and I didn't remember anything that had gone down. I hooked up with a guy called Steve Martin, male, 34. The guy was so funny, handsome, and he was just a breath of fresh air. We just clicked, the conversations between us were flowing. It was like we had known each other for a very long time. We had a great time together. Then from there, we became close friends. He became my shoulder to cry on. He gave me advice without judging me. My marriage lacked happiness, attention, affection, and time. That guy gave me all that. He made me feel alive and took me back to the times when my husband and I were still getting to know each other. We drank, danced, and ate. It was a lot of fun. I felt alive and free again. I felt like I was my old self. Not that I was going out and getting drunk, but I was free and happy. I missed being my old self, not a jailed wife. Was I wrong to choose myself for once? Steve's personality was matching my expectations. We had some drinks, and before I knew it, we were in a car. His car, to be specific. We made out in a car, and it was a great experience for me. I really loved the way he was doing me, the way he touches every sensitive spot on my body. I just couldn't get enough of him. What he was doing was just so magical and on top of the world. The man really knew how to explore a woman's body. Steve and I couldn't get enough of each other, so we ended up doing more than one round that day. Since then, we have formed some kind of a relationship or an affair. We would meet up in our secret spot outside Washington because I was kind of scared that my husband would somehow find out about my affair with Steve. And if he was to find out, I should be expecting the worst. My husband, or must I say my ex-husband, may be the sweetest and humble guy ever. But when he gets angry, the world would have floods and tornadoes, all of it at the same time. My affair with Steve was purely and strictly an intimate affair. No feelings were involved. I knew that I loved my husband so much and I wouldn't want that to end. I loved Zach. In fact, I still love him so much, and I don't think there would ever be someone that I would ever love like I love him. My marriage meant a lot to me. I know that what I did was very stupid and selfish of me. I had not only jeopardized my marriage, but I had broken my wedding vows that I had made in front of my whole family. I committed adultery knowing very well that I was married. I had thought that maybe I was the problem. I started doubting myself. I had thought that maybe I was no longer enough for him, or I had changed and got ugly. What was I supposed to think? I started having low self-esteem. I was sinking deep into depression, but luckily I had Steve to destroy me from my sorrows. He was everything and more. I told my parents about what was going on in my marriage, and the advice I got was, in marriage you have to be patient with your husband. Just make sure not to make something that would drive him away from your marriage. I didn't understand that kind of advice because it was useless and pathetic. Days later, my husband once asked me if I was still happy in our marriage. Stupid me, instead of being honest, I lied and told him that I was still happy. I know it was a pretty dumb move that I had done, and I regretted not being honest in the first place because honesty and communication is the key to successful marriage and relationships, right? But I chose to be a liar and a fool out of my husband, not knowing that he actually had a video and he knew the truth. It was just that he wanted me to come clean and confess everything to him, but I failed. About a week later, my husband had been home a lot lately, and it really surprised me because I even forgot when was the last time I had seen him around the house. The worst part was not being locked up in his office, working. As much as it was supposed to make me happy, but I was not, especially for the sudden change of heart. He would still tell me that he loved me, but I didn't, and I couldn't believe it anymore. I mean, there were a lot of loopholes in his act, and it was really alarming. One would think we were so much in love and would look like the perfect couple ever. But I knew my husband, and he was hiding something from me, and I had to try and find out what he was really hiding. I was so unstoppable. I was just hooked in the lovemaking that I was doing with Steve. I didn't care much about my husband anymore. I mean, I had got on my feet and I was getting what I had been desiring for the longest time. So I would just leave Zach in the house sometimes and tell him that I was going to meet up with someone while I was going to meet up with Steve in our secret location. Little did I know that the bubble that I was in would soon be busted and it was not going to be very nice. I had changed, you know. The way I was doing things was really not the shy and weird Tamia, myself. I became the person that I would not even recognize. I had started lying a lot to Zach about my whereabouts, and I would wear revealing clothes. I'm sure Zach would see that I was lying about where I was going at times because of the way I was wearing and where I said I was going to. I really don't know what was happening to me, but whatever it is that was happening, I totally regret it. It changed me in the worst way possible. Even my parents would be concerned about me. But little did they know that I was actually having an affair with a guy who drove me crazy with his intimate action. One day I had lied to Zach about where I was going. Forgetting that I had married the IT specialist, I didn't know that he had access to my phone, though I had once suspected since he loved sitting on computers a lot. I told him that I was visiting my friend Lawrence, not knowing that he already had information of where I was going. So I met up with Steve in the restaurant. We went there to order something to eat before going to our secret spot. It is a 30 minutes drive from my marital house to the restaurant. If I knew that on that day the universe wouldn't be on my side, I wouldn't have gone to meet up with Steve. Steve and I got into our secret location, and without wasting any time, we got into what we did best. We made so much of S****, and it was so wild. It was like we knew that it was going to be our last day together. The way things were happening, I should have known that something big was going to happen, but with my nonchalant self, I didn't even notice. I was just so caught up in a small bubble that Steve and I were in. We were really enjoying each other's time and affection. That time, Steve and I were deeply in intimacy. We were doing all those nasty and freaky things. Steve really knew his things and had a lot of experience in this intimacy department. He knew what he was doing. It was like he was trained, you know. The way he was so gentle with a woman's body, it was like he had learned it from the book or at school. Somehow I wished that it was at least my husband who was doing all those things to me, but it was just a random man that I had got from the club, and that man called himself Steve. As we were chilling, after we were done with our intimate sessions, Steve started confessing his feelings for me, which shocked me because I took him as just my destruction, my intimate partner. I couldn't understand his sudden developed feelings. I rejected him and told him that I was married and he was just my intimate partner, and that was it. I didn't see him in the way he was seeing me. The guy did the unthinkable and blackmailed me to at least spend 2 nights at his house, or become his booty call if I didn't want my husband to find out about the times I had been spending with him and telling him about my marriage problems. I was so surprised by his sudden change I didn't know what to do because he had been recording all our conversations, which I didn't know about. I had no control over the situation. I didn't want my husband or my parents to know about my affair with this man. I just couldn't believe that Steve would do me like that. I mean, I had thought we were just having a good time and just having fun because he was also engaged to be married. What we were doing was not supposed to be happening, and it was not supposed to even start. Him and I had broken our homes and jeopardized our relations. So I didn't and couldn't understand why he would suddenly get attached and decide to confess his feelings for me. Since I had decided to just cut all contacts with Steve and focus on my marriage, I told myself that I had a lot to lose if I were to continue playing Steve's puppet. A week later, Zach came back looking angry. He didn't even tell me what had made him angry. He slapped me and called me names. I was so confused and shocked by his outburst until he told me that he knew about my floozy ways with the guy I met at the pub. Since that day, my life became miserable. I was paying for the stupid decisions that I had made. My only sin was trusting a stranger and telling him about my marriage. Worst part, even if I tried to deny it, Zach had proof, which meant that the guy had sent him everything because I got him arrested since he was starting to harass me, and he got out within 6 months. I thought he was not going to bother me anymore since it had been a year. I didn't think he would come back and I would be stuck in the middle of everything. So I was just chilling at home, going through some Netflix. Zach had moved out of the house without saying a word, only the time when he was calling me names and telling me that he knew about my floozy ways. I really missed my husband so much as some of the words that he had said to me stung, but I knew that I had deserved them. I mean, I had done the poor guy wrong, and I somehow found myself in a sticky situation with my affair. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. I first hesitated to answer it, but eventually I did, hoping that it would maybe be Zach because I had been trying to reach out to him. I wanted to apologize and maybe try and fix our marriage. To my surprise, it wasn't the person I had expected, but it was my worst nightmare, Steve. Steve called me and asked me to rush to his house. He has been held hostage and I need to help him. I didn't want to help him, but I somehow found myself telling him that I would be in his house in 30 minutes. He then spoke in a quivering and scared voice and told me that my husband was going to murder him. I had to try and come earlier. I didn't wait any more time. I just took the car keys and went straight to Steve's house, and I got the shock of my life. I saw Zach standing beside Steve, who was bleeding so much. I tried asking Zach to take him to the hospital at least, but the husband of mine didn't even want to listen. Instead, he just told me to join the fun. Can you imagine that? I had really thought I knew Zach up until that day. I saw a very different side of him, a scary side of him, and I was somehow regretting even getting married to him, but my heart still loved him. What do you call that? I pleaded with him to calm down and reconsider his decision of wanting to hurt people because they had done him wrong. I think I infuriated him more when I said that because he slapped me with the back of the gun that he was holding. I didn't even know that Zach owned a gun. I was so surprised and scared. I didn't know the person who was in front of me. As if that wasn't enough, he took a hammer and hammered his hand with it, saying that he was fixing the hand that was busy exploring people's wives' bodies. What Zach was doing was really gruesome and heartless. The poor guy kept apologizing and begging to be freed. Zach was so heartless, and I couldn't believe that I had been married to a monster all those years. After he hammered Steve's hand, he wanted to cut off his fingers, but I asked him not to do it. Instead of listening to me, Zach came to me and told me to ride Steve the way I was riding him behind his back. I had thought that my husband had gone crazy, and it was really frustrating and scary. I just couldn't believe that he would actually say that to me. I had thought he loved me, but I guess I was wrong. Zach shot Steve on his knees and told him to never blackmail people for something that he was also part of. He also told him that he wanted to see how he would ride people's wives without legs. I was tired of crying and begging Zach to stop. Everything was just traumatizing for me. I couldn't continue watching it any longer because I fainted. It was too gruesome and I was scared of what he would do to me. I woke up in a hospital. The first people I saw were my parents and Zach. I didn't understand why Zach was there after everything that he had put me through. The trauma that he had caused me. Little did I know that he was actually in the hospital to give me divorce papers. I saw disappointment in my parents' faces, and I would actually say that my mother's eye would haunt me till my last day on earth. My father confessed his disappointment and told me that I should go home because they had thought that Zach and I would last longer, but I decided to ruin my marriage and commit adultery. My mother asked where her quiet and shy daughter wasn't. I couldn't answer any of their questions, and I was already feeling guilty and regretful because of what I had done. A few days after I was discharged and I went back home, I missed Zach so much and I wished that I had done things differently. Maybe I would still be in my marital home and happy. Even today, I still miss Zach a lot. I had also tried contacting him, but I think he had changed his numbers or he had blocked my number. I just don't know what to do. Yes, he has shown a very scary side of him, but I still love him, and I want to go back to him. What should I do?